I grew up overlooked as the middle child. When I stopped showing up for holidays, my family said I was distancing myself. Then, a call from my mom made me realize I was right to move away. The phone call came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was reorganizing my kitchen cabinets. My mother's voice crackled through the speaker with that particular edge of annoyance I'd grown up hearing whenever she felt inconvenienced. "Just where have you been?" I paused, holding a stack of dinner plates midair. "What do you mean, you missed Thanksgiving? You missed Christmas. You weren't at Easter brunch and now you're not coming to your cousin Jennifer's engagement party this weekend. What is going on with you?" The absurdity hit me like a physical force. I set the plates down carefully on the counter and picked up my phone, taking it off speaker. "Mom, I moved to Arizona 14 months ago." Silence stretched across the line. Not the thoughtful kind, but the bewildered variety that comes when someone's brain is trying to process information that doesn't fit their narrative. "What are you talking about? You live in Connecticut." I lived in Connecticut. Past tense. I packed up my apartment in Stamford, hired movers, drove across the country, and started a new job at a marketing firm in Phoenix. That was March of last year. "That's ridiculous. You never told us you were moving." The laugh that escaped me was harsh and unexpected. "I told you. I told Dad. I told Ryan and Ashley. I even mentioned it at Sunday dinner the week before I left." My mother made that dismissive sound in the back of her throat, the one that meant she thought I was being dramatic or misremembering. "Well, nobody remembers that. If you'd actually been serious about moving across the country, don't you think we would have noticed? There it was." The central thesis of my entire childhood distilled into one sentence. If something mattered, if something was real, if something was important, my family would have noticed. The inverse was their guiding principle. If they didn't notice, it must not have mattered. "You should have noticed I wasn't there," I said quietly. "At any of those gatherings you just mentioned. We thought you were busy with work. You've always been antisocial anyway." Antisocial. The label they'd given me sometime around middle school, when I stopped fighting for scraps of their attention. My older brother Ryan was the golden child, the one who had taken over Dad's construction business and bought a house 3 streets away from our childhood home. My younger sister Ashley was the baby, the creative one whose mediocre paintings hung in every room of my parents' house like gallery pieces. I was the middle child who existed in their peripheral vision. Present but not prominent. There but not seen. "I need to get back to work." I lied. "I'll talk to you later." "Wait, about Jennifer's party." I hung up. My hands were shaking. The thing about being overlooked your entire life is that you start to wonder if you're the problem. Maybe you're not interesting enough, not loud enough, not worth the effort of remembering. I'd spent 28 years in that headspace before something shifted. It happened at Ryan's 32nd birthday party. Actually, we were all gathered in my parents' backyard, the late February Connecticut chill kept at bay by the propane heaters Dad had set up. Ashley was showing everyone her latest series of abstract paintings on her phone. Mom was fussing over Ryan's birthday cake, making sure the frosting was perfect. Dad was manning the grill even though it was 40 degrees outside. I sat at the patio table with my announcement rehearsed in my head. I'd been offered a position at a prestigious marketing firm in Phoenix with a 40% salary increase. It was the kind of opportunity you don't refuse. I was excited, terrified, and ready to start fresh somewhere. Nobody knew me as the quiet one or the antisocial middle child. "Hey everyone," I'd said, raising my voice slightly. "I have some news." Ashley kept scrolling through her phone, showing my Aunt Patricia another painting. Ryan was texting someone, grinning at his screen. Mom was counting candles. Dad was flipping burgers. "I'm moving to Arizona," I continued louder this time. "I got a job offer at Morrison & Hale. I'll be their senior marketing strategist. I'm leaving in 3 weeks." My mother had glanced up briefly. "That's nice, honey. Ryan, come here and make sure this is the right number of candles." That was it. My father had nodded vaguely in my direction before turning back to the grill. Ashley never looked up from her phone. Ryan eventually wandered over to inspect the cake situation, walking past me without acknowledgement. I could have made a scene, could have demanded they listen, could have forced them to engage with what I was saying. But I'd learned long ago that you can't make people care. You can't script their reactions or demand their attention. Either you matter to someone or you don't. So I decided to conduct an experiment instead. Over the next 3 weeks, I mentioned my move 4 more times. Once at Sunday dinner when Mom was complaining about property taxes. Once when Ashley called to borrow money for art supplies. Once when Dad asked if I could help Ryan move some equipment the following month. Once when we were all together again for my aunt's retirement party. Each time I got the same response, vague acknowledgement followed by immediate dismissal as the conversation pivoted to something more interesting. Ryan's business expansion, Ashley's upcoming art show at a local coffee shop, the neighbor's new fence that was apparently 6 inches over the property line and driving Dad insane. I documented it all. Not in a creepy way, but I kept notes on my phone. Who I told when I told them what their response was. I even sent a family group text 2 days before my move. Final packing day. Arizona, here I come. Ashley had responded with a thumbs up emoji. Nobody else replied. The movers came on a Thursday. I handed over my keys to the landlord on Friday. I started driving west on Saturday morning. My entire life packed into my Subaru Outback and a moving truck scheduled to arrive in Phoenix 4 days later. Nobody called to say goodbye. Nobody asked if I needed help with the drive. Nobody even asked for my new address. The first few weeks in Phoenix were disorienting in the way that complete freedom often is. I woke up every morning in my empty apartment, sunlight streaming through windows that faced a direction Connecticut windows never had. The job was challenging and rewarding. My coworkers invited me to happy hours. I joined a women's hiking group and discovered I actually loved physical activity when it wasn't gym class humiliation. I made friends, real friends, who asked about my day and remembered conversations we'd had the week before. I went on dates with a software engineer named Marcus, who actually listened when I talked. I adopted a cat from a local shelter and named her Phoenix, which made me smile every time I said it. Months passed. I posted photos on social media, occasionally pictures of desert sunsets and mountain hikes. My location was clearly listed as Phoenix, Arizona on my profile. I checked in at restaurants and coffee shops with geotagged posts. The evidence of my relocation was publicly available for anyone who cared to look. Spring became summer. Summer faded into fall. My lease in Connecticut had ended. My mail was being forwarded to my Arizona address. I'd updated my driver's license, my voter registration, my everything, and nobody noticed. Sunday dinners continued without me, according to Ashley's Instagram stories. Ryan posted photos from family barbecues. Mom's Facebook was full of pictures from various gatherings and holiday celebrations. I appeared in none of them. My absence left no visible gap. At first, I waited for someone to ask where I was, then I waited for someone to call and check if I was okay. Eventually, I stopped waiting and started living. Thanksgiving came and went. I volunteered at a local food bank and had dinner with coworkers. Christmas was spent hiking Camelback Mountain and watching movies with friends. Easter brunch happened at a cafe downtown with people who had known me for less than a year but seemed to understand me better than my family ever had. I sent Christmas cards to my parents' house with my return address clearly printed. I posted photos from holiday events with Arizona landmarks in the background. My digital footprint was a trail of breadcrumbs leading directly to my new life. The invisible girl had moved across the country, and the people who were supposed to notice didn't even realize she'd left the room. When Mom's call came that Tuesday in April, 14 months after I'd driven away from Connecticut, I realized the experiment had concluded itself. The results were definitive and brutal. I could disappear from their lives entirely. And the only thing that would eventually prompt concern was the inconvenience of my absence at social obligations. Not worry about my safety, not curiosity about my life, not love or connection or any of the things families are supposed to feel. Just irritation that I wasn't fulfilling my role as background character in the ongoing drama of their lives. After hanging up on my mother, I sat on my couch with Phoenix curled in my lap. My apartment was quiet except for the hum of the air conditioning. Through my window, I could see palm trees swaying against an impossibly blue sky. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. That was very rude. Call me back. Then another from Dad. Your mother is upset. What's this about Arizona? Ashley chimed in. Mom says you moved when Ryan's message was typically brief. Is this a joke? I turned my phone face down and closed my eyes. The vindication I'd expected to feel wasn't there. Instead, there was just a hollow sort of sadness, the kind that comes from having your worst suspicions confirmed. They really hadn't noticed. For an entire year, my absence had registered so little that they'd simply filled in the blank space with assumptions. Busy with work being antisocial, just Olivia being Olivia, not worth following up on. My phone kept buzzing. I ignored it. That evening, I met my friend Jessica for dinner at our favorite Mexican place. She'd moved to Phoenix from Michigan 2 years ago and understood what it was like to start over far from home. You're quiet tonight? She observed, dipping a chip in salsa. Everything okay? I told her about the call, about the entire year, about my experiment and its devastating conclusion. Jessica was quiet for a moment, then shook her head slowly. That's beyond neglect, Liv. That's erasure. The word hit hard because it was accurate. I'd been erased from my family's consciousness so thoroughly that my physical absence from an entire state hadn't registered. What are you going to do? She asked. I don't know. Part of me wants to tell them exactly how messed up this is. Part of me wants to just block their numbers and move on. What does the biggest part of you want? I considered this. Honestly, I want to not care. I want to be so secure in my new life that their obliviousness doesn't matter. Are you there yet? Almost, I admitted, but not quite. My phone rang while we were finishing dinner. Mom, again. I let it go to voicemail. The voicemail she left was a masterpiece of self-centered indignation. Olivia, I don't appreciate being hung up on. We need to discuss this Arizona situation. You can't just move across the country without telling anyone. That's not how family works. Call me back tonight. I played it for Jessica on speaker. Her jaw dropped. She genuinely believes you didn't tell them, Jessica said, like she's rewritten history in her head. That's the thing about being overlooked. They didn't ignore me deliberately. They just literally did not process the information. I was talking, but they weren't listening. I was there, but they weren't seeing. Over the next few days, the calls and texts continued. Mom was angry. Dad was confused. Ashley was hurt that I'd kept such a big secret. Ryan wanted to know if this was some kind of protest or statement. A protest. as if my entire cross-country relocation was a performance art piece designed to get their attention rather than a genuine attempt to build a better life. I thought about responding with a detailed timeline, a PowerPoint presentation of all the ways I tried to be seen over the years. But what would be the point? People don't change because you present them with evidence of their failures. They change when they decide they want to. My coworker Jennifer, different. Jennifer, one who actually knew my last name, noticed I was distracted during our Monday morning meeting. "You okay?" she asked afterward, lingering by my desk. I told her an abbreviated version. She listened without interrupting something I'd learned to appreciate about the people in my new life. My family was like that with my sister, she said when I finished. She was the forgotten middle child, too. Eventually, she moved to Seattle and stopped trying to make them understand. She's happier now. Did they ever figure it out? Jennifer shrugged. Some of them did, some never will. But my sister stopped waiting for their validation, and that freed her up to find people who valued her from the start. It was the same conclusion I'd been coming to, but hearing it from someone else made it feel more solid. That afternoon, I had my weekly video call with my therapist, Dr. Sarah Chen. I'd started therapy 6 months after moving to Arizona initially to deal with the adjustment of starting over. It had evolved into something much deeper. So they finally noticed, Dr. Chen said after I'd explained the week's events. 14 months later, only because I wasn't fulfilling my designated role at family functions. How does that make you feel? Vindicated, I guess, but also sad. I wanted to be wrong about them. I wanted this experiment to fail. I wanted someone to call after 3 weeks and say, "Wait, where are you?" But they didn't. And now they're acting like I'm the one who did something wrong by not being more insistent about my move, like I should have forced them to pay attention. Dr. Chen leaned forward slightly on the screen. "We've talked before about your pattern of accommodating their neglect, making yourself smaller so you wouldn't be disappointed when they overlooked you again. This move was you choosing not to accommodate that anymore. I guess I thought there'd be more satisfaction in being proven right. Being right doesn't heal the wound of being unseen. It just confirms it exists." I sat with that for a moment. She was right as usual. The vindication was hollow because what I'd really wanted, what I'd always wanted, was for them to care enough to notice without me having to disappear first. The question now, Dr. Chen continued, is what kind of relationship you want with them moving forward. You've established your independence. You've proven you don't need their validation to thrive. What comes next is entirely up to you. What did I want? The honest answer was complicated. I wanted them to change, to suddenly become the family I'd always needed. But I also knew that was unlikely. People in their 50s and 60s don't usually overhaul their entire way of relating to someone. "I think I want them to try," I said finally. Really try, not just for a few weeks until the guilt wears off, but actually put in effort to know me. And if they can't or won't do that, I want to be okay with keeping my distance. That sounds healthy and realistic. After the session, I went for a walk around my neighborhood. The evening air was still warm, the sky turning those shades of pink and orange that had seemed impossible when I first arrived. I'd grown to love the desert landscape, the way it felt both harsh and beautiful simultaneously. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "I found the email you sent about your move from last March. It was in my inbox. I remember seeing it now. I think I meant to respond and got distracted." No apology, no acknowledgement of how devastating that casual distraction had been. Just a statement of fact, as if remembering the email was sufficient. I started typing a response 3 different times and deleted each one. Finally, I wrote, "Okay, nothing more." Let her sit with that single word the way I'd sat with years of casual dismissals. Another text came through, this time from my brother. "Been thinking about what you said. You were right about me not calling. I didn't realize how one-sided it was." "Thanks for saying that," I typed back. "Can I ask you something?" Ryan's next message read. "Sure. Did you feel like this our whole lives, like we didn't see you?" I appreciated the directness of the question. "Yes, since we were kids." 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times. "Finally, I'm sorry. I thought you were just quiet and independent. I didn't realize you were quiet because we talked over you." It was the most insightful thing Ryan had ever said to me. Maybe there was hope for change after all. "I was independent because I had to be," I responded. "Nobody was paying enough attention to depend on. That sucks. I'm sorry." 2 simple sentences, but they landed differently than Mom's explanations and justifications. Ryan was acknowledging the harm without qualifying it. "Thanks," I sent back. "I appreciate you saying that." My phone rang a few minutes later. Ashley's name appeared on the screen. I debated letting it go to voicemail, but answered on the 4th ring. "Hey," she said, her voice thick like she'd been crying. "I don't want to bother you, but I need to say something. I'm listening. I looked through all your social media posts from the past year, every single one. You documented your whole move, your whole new life. I liked some of them, but I don't think I ever actually looked at them. Not really." I waited, letting her continue. "There's one from your first day at your new job. You're standing in front of the building looking nervous and excited. I liked it and moved on. I didn't ask how your first day went. I didn't ask anything. No, you didn't." And there's another one from when you adopted Phoenix. You wrote this whole caption about how you'd always wanted a cat, but the timing never felt right before. I commented cute with a heart emoji. I didn't ask about her name or why you chose her or anything that would show I cared about what was happening in your life. I could hear her crying now, not hiding it. Liv, I've been the worst sister. Not because I actively hurt you, but because I just didn't see you. And that might be worse. It is worse, I said quietly, because there's no villain to be angry at, just absence. Can I try to be better? I know that's asking a lot after 29 years of being terrible, but I want to try. What does trying look like to you? Ashley was quiet for a moment. Calling you once a week just to talk, asking about your life and remembering what you tell me. Actually reading your posts instead of scrolling past them. Showing up for you the way you've always shown up for us, even when we didn't deserve it. It was a good answer. Whether she'd follow through remained to be seen, but the words were right. At least. I'd like that, I told her. But Ashley, you need to know that if this is just guilt-driven and fades out in a month, I'm not going to chase you. I'm not going to beg for your attention anymore. I understand. I'll do better. I promise. Promises were easy to make in moments of crisis. The real test would be whether she kept it when the crisis faded. We talked for another 20 minutes, and for the first time in memory, Ashley asked me questions and listened to the answers. She wanted to know about my job, my apartment, Phoenix, the cat Marcus, my friends here. She asked follow-up questions that proved she was paying attention. It felt surreal, like I'd stepped into an alternate universe where my sister actually cared about my life. I tried not to get my hopes up too high, tried to maintain realistic expectations, but a small part of me that had been closed off for years cracked open just a bit. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I went to work, hung out with friends, went on a date with Marcus, took Phoenix to the vet for her checkup. I lived my life the one I'd built brick by brick, in a place where nobody knew me as the forgettable middle child. On Saturday, my phone rang with a video call from my mother. I almost declined, but curiosity got the better of me. I answered. Mom's face filled the screen, and behind her, I could see the familiar kitchen of my childhood home. Dad was visible in the background. Ashley appeared in the frame, and Ryan wandered in holding a beer. A family meeting about me. How novel. There you are, Mom said, her tone hovering between relief and irritation. We've been trying to reach you all week. I've been busy. Too busy to talk to your family. This from Dad, his voice gruff. I've been busy for 14 months. Nobody seemed to mind before. Ashley leaned into frame. Liv, come on. We're all confused here. When exactly did you move? I pulled up my photo gallery and selected a picture. It was from my first day in Phoenix. Me standing in front of a welcome to Arizona, sign my car packed with boxes visible in the background. The date stamp read, March 17th of the previous year. I held it up to the camera. This was taken 14 months ago. My mother squinted at the screen. Well, we never saw that photo. I posted it on Facebook, Instagram too. Public posts. You're welcome to scroll back and check. Silence descended on the call. I watched their faces, saw the moment when they couldn't quite figure out how to dismiss this evidence. Why would you move without discussing it with us? Dad asked finally. The question was so absurd I almost laughed. I did discuss it multiple times. I told you at Ryan's birthday party. I mentioned it at 4 Sunday dinners. I sent a group text. None of you responded with anything more than generic acknowledgement. Well, you should have been more clear that you were serious, Mom said, her default defense mechanism kicking in. Make it my fault for not communicating properly, rather than their fault for not listening. How much clearer could I have been? I said the words, I'm moving to Arizona, in complete sentences to your faces. What exactly was ambiguous about that? Ryan spoke up for the first time. Maybe we thought you were just considering it. People talk about moving all the time. Did any of you ask me about it? Did anyone say, tell me more about this move? Or when are you planning to go? Or literally any follow-up question that would indicate you'd processed what I said? The silence was answer enough. Here's what actually happened. I continued, surprised by how calm I felt. I told you I was moving. You heard the words but didn't absorb them because you weren't really paying attention. You've never really paid attention to me. I'm the middle child who doesn't cause problems or demand focus. So I exist in this weird peripheral space where you know I'm around but don't actually engage with my life. That's not fair, Ashley protested. We care about you. Do you... Tell me something about my life from the past year? Anything. Ashley faltered. You work in marketing. I've worked in marketing for 6 years. What else? Nobody answered. I got a promotion. I'm dating someone. I adopted a cat. I've hiked 6 different mountain trails. I've made friends who actually remember my birthday without Facebook reminders. I've built an entire life and none of you knew any of it because none of you asked. My mother's face had gone tight. You're being dramatic. We've been supportive of you. Name one thing you've been supportive of. We always invited you to family events, invited me to be in the background. You mean to fill a seat at the table to make the family photos look complete? But did anyone ever ask me how my day was and wait for the full answer? Did anyone remember the things I told them? Did anyone notice when I stopped showing up? Dad cleared his throat. So what is this punishment? You moved away to teach us a lesson. No, Dad. I moved away because I got an amazing job opportunity in a beautiful city. I moved away to start fresh somewhere I wasn't automatically cast as the forgettable one. The punishment, if you want to call it that, was seeing how long it would take you to notice I was gone. Turns out the answer is until it became inconvenient. You're being cruel, Mom said, her voice wavering slightly. I'm being honest. There's a difference. Ryan shifted uncomfortably. So what now? You just never come back, never visit. Why would I visit? So I can sit at Sunday dinner being talked over and ignored. So I can watch everyone celebrate Ashley's hobbies and your business deals while I fade into the wallpaper. I have friends here who see me. I have a boyfriend who listens when I talk. I have a life that doesn't require me to shrink myself to fit into the background. The words hung in the air between us, heavy with years of accumulated neglect. We want you at Jennifer's engagement party, Mom said finally, her voice small. Jennifer and I haven't spoken in 3 years. I'm not even sure she knows my middle name. Why would I fly across the country for someone who wouldn't notice if I was there or not? Because family shows up for each other, Dad said. The irony was so thick I could taste it. Family also notices when someone moves to a different state. Family asks questions and remembers answers. Family sees you. Ryan set his beer down hard enough that I heard it through the phone. Okay, you've made your point. We screwed up. What do you want from us? I don't want anything from you. That's what you're not understanding. I moved to Arizona for me not to punish you or prove something. The fact that none of you noticed is just the evidence of what I already knew, which is that I've been invisible to all of you for as long as I can remember. Do you know what it's like growing up in a house where you can tell a story at dinner and have someone start talking over you before you finish the second sentence? Where you can share good news and watch everyone's eyes glaze over? Where your accomplishments get a distracted "that's nice" while everyone else's get celebrated? Mom's face crumbled slightly. We celebrated your achievements. Name one. One achievement of mine that you celebrated. The silence stretched painfully. My college graduation, Mom prompted. You left early because Ryan had a business meeting you wanted to attend with him. My first promotion. Ashley had an art show the same weekend and everyone went to that instead. When I paid off my student loans 2 years early, I told you at Sunday dinner, and Dad changed the subject to talk about the Patriots game. I watched the memories surface on their faces, the uncomfortable recognition of truths they'd never had to confront. There was the time I was in the hospital with appendicitis. I continued, my voice steady despite the emotion building in my chest. I called you from the ER. Mom, you said you'd come after you finished helping Ashley pack for her weekend trip. You never showed up. Dad came for 20 minutes between job sites. Ryan didn't come at all. I had that important gallery connection Ashley started. I know. I remember because I was lying in a hospital bed post-surgery, and I knew exactly where everyone was and why I wasn't the priority. I've always known. Dad ran a hand over his face. We didn't realize. You never said anything. I said everything constantly. You just never heard it. There's a difference between not speaking and not being heard. I spent my whole childhood and most of my 20s speaking into a void. That's harsh, Ryan said. Is it? When's the last time you called me just to talk? When's the last time any of you initiated contact with me that wasn't about needing something or inviting me to an event? More silence. It was becoming a theme. I can tell you about every milestone in each of your lives from the past 5 years, I said. Ryan, you expanded your business to include landscaping services. You bought a new truck last fall. Your daughter Emma started kindergarten and you coached her soccer team. Ashley, you've had 7 different art shows at various coffee shops and galleries. You started dating someone named Derek last spring. You got that commission to paint a mural at the community center. Mom, you joined a book club and redecorated the living room. You started volunteering at the library on Thursdays. Dad, you finally built that workshop in the garage you'd been planning. You took up woodworking. You made a dining table for Ryan's house. I paused, letting them absorb this. Now, tell me anything about my life from the past 5 years before the move. Ashley was crying now, quiet tears running down her face. I'm sorry, Liv. I should have paid more attention. It was something, at least a crack in the defensive wall they'd collectively erected. I'm not telling you this to make you feel guilty, I said softer now. I'm telling you because you asked why I moved without telling you. And the truth is, I did tell you. You just weren't listening. You've never really listened. My mother wiped at her eyes. Can we fix this? The question hung there, vulnerable and uncertain. Could we? Did I want to? I don't know, Mom. That depends on whether you actually want to know me or whether you just want me to resume my role as the least important person in family photos. That's not who you are to us, Dad said, but his voice lacked conviction. Then tell me, what did I study in college? What was my major silence? When's my birthday? February, Mom said hesitantly. March 12th. I've been alive for 29 years and you can't remember the month I was born. Ashley covered her face with her hands. Ryan stared at something off screen. Dad looked stricken. Mom opened her mouth and closed it several times without producing words. I need to go, I said quietly. I have plans tonight. Olivia. Wait, Mom started. I'm not disappearing again. You have my number. You have my address now. Clearly, if you want to be part of my life, you're going to have to actually try. That means remembering things I tell you. That means asking questions and listening to answers. That means noticing when I'm there and when I'm not. Can we call you tomorrow? Ashley asked. Sure, I'll be home. I ended the call and sat in the ensuing silence of my apartment. Phoenix jumped up onto the couch and headbutted my hand, demanding attention. I scratched behind her ears and felt the tension slowly drain from my shoulders. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Still on for tonight. Thinking we could try that new Thai place, I smiled and typed back. Definitely. Pick me up at 7. 3 dots appeared then. Can't wait. Also, you okay? You seemed stressed earlier. Someone who noticed. Someone who asked. Someone who cared about the answer. I'm good, I replied. Really good. The truth was, I didn't know if things with my family would ever change. Maybe they'd make an effort for a few weeks before sliding back into old patterns. Maybe they'd surprise me and actually start seeing me as a person rather than a background fixture. Maybe the distance would remain geographical and emotional. But here's what I'd learned in 14 months in Arizona. I didn't need their validation to matter. I didn't need them to notice me to be worthy of being noticed. I built a life full of people who saw me, remembered me, valued me. I became someone I actually liked. Someone confident enough to walk away from people who treated her as optional. The invisible girl had moved to the desert and discovered she'd never been invisible at all. She'd just been surrounded by people who refused to look. My family could learn to look, or they could keep staring past me. Either way, I'd be fine, because I'd finally learned the most important lesson. Being overlooked is only painful when you're still waiting to be seen. Once you stop waiting and start living, their blindness becomes their loss, not yours. Sunday afternoon came, and right on schedule my phone rang. Ashley's name appeared on the screen. Hey, I answered. Hey, her voice was tentative. Is this a good time? Yeah, I'm just reading on my balcony. What's up? I wanted to apologize. Actually apologize, not just say the words. I've been thinking about what you said about us not listening. You're right. I can't remember the last time I asked you about your life and actually listened to the answer. I waited, letting her continue. I looked back at your posts from when you moved. You documented everything. The packing, the drive, your first week here. I liked some of them, but I don't think I actually looked at them. I just scrolled past. Yeah, I said simply. That must have hurt knowing we were all just missing you completely. It did. It does. Can I ask you something about your job? Such a small question, but it carried weight. Sure. What exactly do you do at Morrison and Hale? I smiled despite myself and started talking about my work. Really talking about it. The campaigns I'd managed, the challenges I'd faced, the success I'd achieved. Ashley listened, asked follow-up questions, remembered details from earlier in the conversation, and referenced them later. It was a start. Maybe not enough to rebuild everything broken between us, but a foundation at least. When we hung up 40 minutes later, I felt lighter. My phone buzzed again almost immediately. A text from Ryan. Can we talk this week? Want to hear about Arizona and apologize? Then Dad. Sunday dinner next month if you're willing to visit. We'll actually listen this time. Mom's message was longer. I've been looking at your photos. Arizona is beautiful. I'm sorry I missed seeing you discover it. I'm sorry I missed a year of your life. I'm sorry I missed 29 years of really seeing you. Can we start over? Could we? I didn't know. Trust wasn't rebuilt in a day, and patterns established over decades didn't disappear with a few apologies. But maybe we could try. I looked out at the desert landscape, at the mountains purple in the distance, at the city I'd made my own. This was home now. These people, this place, this life I'd built from scratch. They were real and solid in my life. Whether my family learned to see me or not, I'd already learned the most important thing. I was worth seeing. Always had been. The invisible girl had finally come into focus, and it turned out she was extraordinary. Just nobody back in Connecticut had bothered to notice until she was gone.